Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sword and Tea, our chat show here on Sword and Key, where we talk to game designers, TTRPG folk, just wonderful people in the TTRPG community. I am joined today by is it Tintin?
Tintín.
Tintin, fantastic. From Corazon Interactive, where today we're going to talk about the Devil's Lounge, a two-person tarot TTRPG with one of my favorite adjectives that you use is a magnanimous devil and a person looking to make a deal. So we're going to jump into deals and everything else, but at the same time this is a cozy stream, so please enjoy a cup of tea or whatever warm beverage you happen to have. Or honestly, I'd really any beverage at all. Make sure you stay hydrated, it's important. And if you do have questions that you would like answered, you are always welcome to put them in our Twitch chat as well. Thank you so much for joining us.
I have lukewarm coffee in my hand.
Lukewarm coffee is honestly for a lot of us that is the best that we can hope for.
I put it in. I put it in the microwave. Didn't drink it fast enough. It just went right back on.
Between ADHD and everything else, I think lukewarm coffee is like if there was a mascot coffee for people in the TTRPG community, I think the lukewarm beverages would be it. They're either watered down from all the ice that's melted, or it's something hot that is no longer. But thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate having you here. Devil's Lounge was a game I kind of mentioned to you before, but to everyone else, that got brought up in our Sword and Key Discord by one of our players, and it was one of those things that just on paper looks so cool. Just the cover alone looks very cool, and so we definitely want to check it out, and it has definitely lived up to the hype as far as what I'm seeing. So I'm really glad that we can discuss it here today.
You got me grinning from ear to ear.
I'm glad. I always like having folk on in the TTRPG space because I know you all work incredibly hard, but you also often work at your desk by yourself in front of a computer more often than not, and getting feedback is not always a frequent thing. So if nothing else, this is just to celebrate you. Before we get too much into the Devil's Lounge, what are you? Who are you? Where can people find more of you? And yeah, what have you done in the TTRPG space?
Hell yeah. No, I'm honestly very new to the TTRPG space. I think I spent a good chunk of my college experience just fantasizing about playing D&D, but never finding like the community and the people who were actually willing to delve into it with me. So tabletop games have been more of like an exploration of the past year. Before that, I've been making video games, just like small narrative experiences. Currently, so where can you find me? What am I known as? I go by Tintín. My name is Martin, but I just like branding myself as Tintín, Corazón Tintín, and then now I recently made an LLC, which is feels like I was like, ooh, business. And it's called Corazon Interactive, and that's where you can find me on most spaces. But I am noticing that I am most prominent on Blue Sky. Really fucking with it. Instagram I have on too. I technically have a Twitter. That Twitter has like one follower, and I'm like, I never post on you.
Yeah,
I think
we're in that same space. We left Twitter not that long ago. We're not even gonna worry about it.
Exactly.
Yeah, Blue Sky. Okay.
Corazon Interactive, if that can be typed in, and it's just like Corazon, how you would spell heart in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
No accent, because that would make things so difficult. But just Corazon Interactive, and most prominent on Blue Sky, though right now all my Blue Sky posts are just me trying to push for that last little 10% of the Devil's Lounge right now on Kickstarter.
Yes, yes. To note that the Devil's Lounge is live on Kickstarter right now. I actually want to start out by saying that as a backer myself, I highly encourage everyone watching to back as well as you are. You're at 940 as I'm looking at right now out of 1056. So very very close. Just a little over $100. So. Honestly, there's some really great stuff out there. We're going to talk about this at the end as well, but there's a lot of really great incentives to this game, and it's really one of those cool games. Just to kind of pitch it here real quick, that is fun for like a quick game night, especially just like if you and a friend want to play, you and a partner want to play. It's one of those really cool, just kind of like sit down and have a weird but fun game and evening. So to just throw that out there. But if you were going to, that said, if you were going to elevator pitch, the quick and dirty as the Devil's Lounge, how would you describe this game?
Yeah, no, I've especially like the elevator pitch has grown, but I still love my first sentence when I was first starting to think about it, and it is literally, it is a dating app horror game.
I love that.
That is it. I can delve into like the mechanics. It's a tarot game as well. It's a card game. It's a tabletop game. But truly, at its core, it is a dating app horror game, and that is the essence of it. It is about not just what lurks within these digital spaces, but what lurks within you as you navigate this place. What it transforms you into.
That's very cool. And we are weirdly here very on board with dating TTRPGs, especially dating TTRPGs that involve something otherworldly and even monstrous. It's a weird through line. We didn't plan it, but it is something that our channel has a lot of. I love that. So dating TTRPG, tarot based, making a deal with the devil, all very, very cool themes. What was kind of the inspiration behind the Devil's Lounge and the inspiration to kind of make this, especially coming from like a video game space and coming to the TTRPG space? What were some of your inspirations for this?
Absolutely. So there's a lot of inspirations to like the game itself that I can get into later, but like for like the idea, the concept, like the art of it, it very much is born from experience. Like navigating through dating apps myself. Dating is the soft term. There's also just a plain up fact that a lot of these are hookup apps.
Sure.
You very much enter with like a purpose, with a desire, and with almost like a vindictive mission of sorts. And I remember like I stumbled across some of my old writing. I've been using hookup apps since, oh my god, almost a decade now. Almost a decade.
It's weird to think about. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like it's actually been very pervasive in my life.
Yeah.
But I remember writing that on my notebook one time where I think the experience itself was that I had visited Boston on like a little day trip. It's like I was living in Providence, and it was like a train ride away, and I basically like went and I just decided like, oh, let me just open up Grindr. Grindr, if you do not know, it is a very popular gay, explicitly hookup app. It's a little grid. Yep. It's based on like who is nearest to you, so it's very location. It's essentially digital cruising. If you don't know what cruising is, you can Google that one. I'm not going to explain it.
That's self-explanatory, but yes.
Yes. And then it was a day where this was supposed to be a self-care day. This was supposed to be a day where I was just exploring, walking around, taking in the sights, and somehow I ended up on my phone the entire day, not even like getting anything, quote unquote, like achieving that cruise. Just kind of like on my phone, searching, and kind of just like spiraling in a way, and I couldn't break myself off of it. And so I wrote down on my little notebook, I feel like I made a deal with the devil. I have given him all my time, and I have nothing to show for it. And that's usually how it goes with a deal with the devil. You are making an exchange for what you think is a price, but usually there is a further sunken cost that you do not know yet.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, that's very cool. Yeah, it's the everything here costs, it just doesn't cost money. Yes,
exactly. It's just like this idea of the fact that like we are on a pursuit for something, be it love, be it sex, straight up. And a lot of these apps, they're free, but it's like, what is the real price of what you're paying? There is like this saying that I remember, I probably just saw this on like 9gag of all places, but it stuck with me. And it's the idea that like anything that is free, if it's free, then you are not like, what was it? You are the good.
Yes,
You're
absolutely.
like the product is you if it's free.
Yeah.
Like they are getting something out of it, and I just found it also very like gooey and like fun, the idea of like, especially like terms and conditions of any of these apps. You don't really
Yeah.
know what it says in there. So I was just like, and it was like, whilst I was thinking about this game, Grindr had just updated its terms and conditions, and I was like, I'm not fucking reading this. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's if you met a devil at the crossroads today, there wouldn't be this like contract you'd have to read through and sign. It'd be a checkbox at the bottom that says I acknowledge that I read the terms. Absolutely. That's such an interesting kind of classical take on a very modern problem that really isn't that modern, because like you're saying, like every time we use social media, you are the commodity. It's
That's
your
the word.
time, it's your data, it's everything that they're collecting about you. It's every time that you see an ad for, you know, some product that they've data mined to make sure that that's something you're going to want.
Yes.
That's so very, very cool, especially
So
with
that's like what
dating apps as well.
feeds into the idea, and I'd love to
Yeah.
grow and expand upon that like more so in the future. But right now, I was like, let me focus on this one experience that I have, that like is this, and like the idea, like you talk about dating apps to people, and they're like, oh yeah, that's scary, and I was like, yes, like it's easier. Like the idea, like I feel like a lot of people have given me visceral reactions when I tell them it's a dating app horror, and they're like, oh yeah, and it just fits. It's like yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, because there's such an inherent, like, there is a danger to dating apps. And I think that's maybe part of the appeal of them as
Very
well
real.
is, yeah, here's a person you've only ever seen pictures of. You're going to go meet them in person. I mean, how many stories are there of, hey, here's this weirdo who stalked me later, or this was a terrible date, or this or that. And, you know, the horror stories of dating apps. And then you get into, man, what if you went on you matched with the devil, and what does that contract look like? That's really, really cool. Yeah, that's really neat. So the concept of dating apps, of, you know, making these contracts, making these deals, it also really hits that space of, I think, like, dating inherently, you know, especially before you've even met the person, has a level of selfishness and hedonism to it. You know, you have the ultimate goal of, we're gonna hook up or maybe pair up. You know, maybe this is an actual match, but you don't know enough about that person for you to care about what they want yet. So it has to be inherently all about you. That's a really cool concept to build in this. So, okay, so where does tarot kind of play into the game then? How does that kind of add the with TTRPG's level of randomness and storytelling to it?
Yeah, no, for me, the tarot, very much like, it's a mechanic thing for me. It was like I was drawn to the tarot mechanically, and also just like the storytelling element of it. I was trying to find a way to like make a game that has like mechanics that you move stuff around, but that I didn't have to make the pieces for. Because I
For sure.
did ultimately want this to be a zine. And I played this one game a while back. I have many different, like, we're getting to one of like the game inspirations of like other games, and it's Wickedness by Maisie Veselak, if you've maybe heard
Yeah,
of it.
I have. Yeah,
It is.
absolutely.
It's a 3-player game, which also I was like fascinated by. It's like a very specific number. It's not 2, it's not 5, it's not 4, it's 3. And you play with a deck of tarot cards. It is a coven of 3 witches, and then you use the tarot deck to like kind of like tell this story that you're trying to make. And it has its own mechanics. And something that I loved is the fact that, like, for me, a big thing was like, okay, so you're on a dating app, you have characters. The thing with tarot is that there are a lot of characters in the tarot. In the major arcana, we have lots of people, lots of like the High Empress, the Hierophant, not the High Empress, the Empress and the High Priestess. Like,
Yes.
those are all like adjectives and nouns that lead to a person. So I was like, I want to like use the meanings of these cards so that like the players can then create their own characters, but have like this a bit of an archetype to hold them into. And I just found like the major arcana was just like so rich of imagery. Like an element that I like adding into the game is the fact that like, please very much, so when playing this game, your tarot deck in a way is also a player. It is inspiring what is gonna come. If you have like a very cheerful, like a fucking, I think I played a round of the Devil's Lounge, like play tested it. Homegirl brought her cat tarot, so we made all the characters cats.
That's very good.
And I was just like, this is leagues away than what I expected this game was gonna go, but I was so happy to see it go in that direction. So like very much lean into the deck. The more horrific the better, but also one that I'm using a lot right now is Yoshi Yoshitani's what's it called, Tarot the Divine, and it's just very beautiful. And it's like it's just, they're all rich, they all have technically the same imagery, but they all tell it in different ways. So very much lean into the fact of like, what is the mood, what is the style of the tarot deck that you're using, and would you like to bring it into the game?
Absolutely.
There's something
Yeah, no, it's not just numbers, and there's something I particularly love about tarot-based games is, you know, when people play TTRPGs, they have their dice sets, and their dice sets often, you know, correspond to their character or maybe to them, but tarot does that same thing, and tarot involves like all of it. So a person's tarot deck says so much about themselves, you know, whether it was gifted to them by somebody, whether it's something they picked out because the art was very evocative to them, or the concept behind it, you know, whether it's designed to be pop culture, something that they like, or whatever. It is inherently such a part of them that really adds a lot to a story as well. Even if they are playing another character, you always have that little piece of yourself there as well. So for the game itself, it does require the major arcana, minor arcana kings, minor arcana queens, minor arcana pages, and just to go through the stuff that you need. It's actually this is a pretty slim game as far as the stuff that you need, which is always really nice. Like you were saying,
I made an executive decision not early on, I'd say in the midpoint. I was playtesting with a friend, and I could tell that like as every round was occurring, there were steps that I was forgetting. And I was like, oof, if I'm forgetting it as the maker of the game, how can I expect someone who's running the game to remember any of this?
That's really good insight
I like it used to have all of the minor arcana, and those were worth points that could have an effect at the end. And I was like, how can I slim this down? How can I create the same desire that I want to make, but with like more streamlined a little bit? And then I just cut out the minor arcana, because also like if in the future step that this goes really well and we want to perhaps make our own tarot deck for the game, then having to make 25 artworks is much easier than making 78.
Absolutely. Yes. So besides that, besides the arcana, major arcana, minor arcana, kings, queens pages, you have just something to write notes down, and something we always really love seeing, safety tools. So I always appreciate seeing safety tools, especially for a game that does involve dating and aspects of horror, but always really great to see people. Or romance, absolutely.
Like, never make an assumption, especially in this kind of game. Just like, oh yeah, common sense. What is that?
Yeah, and it's one of those things where you are inherently playing with people's emotions, even if it's them pretending emotions for another character. You know, like I said, you always bring a part of yourself to whatever you play. And the one thing that I always tell players for any TTRPG is if you're going to have a romance with another character, you better be talking to that actual person very frequently. Congratulations, you have a relationship now. It might not be you're actually dating that person, but your characters are dating, and that's kind of like, you either have your best friends, or maybe it's like if your kids were dating. Yeah, it's like you need to be checking in frequently to make sure they're also okay with everything that's happening. So really love that. I love that you're using the Lion's Veils, X card, the finger, which I think is a good one. That's fun.
I'd love to sit on those safety tools a little bit, because there is one that I want to like add, and I think a big one that you mentioned. Was it like, it's like you're crying tears for your characters? A big one. I love taking like stuff from different games, especially in safety tools. It's like we're all using these to keep ourselves safe.
Yeah.
But say that there. I remember reading in Wickedness, there was like, I forgot the specific wording, but it was like being the different, like, be wary of the difference between feeling oomphed and upset.
Yes.
Oomphed. You're oomphed if your character is upset, and whoa. Wait, pause. Someone just put in the chat that the goal has been reached on Kickstarter.
It absolutely has. You have actually exceeded your goal. Congratulations. You're sitting currently with a refresh at 1,110. So, actually, I'm sorry. Yeah, that is exceeding. So, congratulations to you. That's very lovely to see.
Oh my god,
We
that's
don't have
insane.
that super often on this show, so that's really nice. So it's always like
Live
it's already
time,
been
live
funded, or
reaction right here.
that's great.
Oh my god. Okay, well, back to safety tools.
Back to safety tools.
Because like they're super important and I actually love them a lot. Like noticing the difference between feeling oomphed and upset, and it's like it's a very like it's a fine line that you need to be able to navigate, and just like feel in touch with.
Mm-hmm.
But then yes, like lines and veils and X card are there. However, I'm considering actually replacing them for a different safety tool that I recently learned about.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know about author named Dre Dragon?
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
I'm familiar with Jay.
Yeah, they work in Possum Creek Games. For those that don't
Right.
know, they've made games like Wander Home and Sleepaway and
Mm-hmm.
Diosda's Bed and Breakfast. And they recently came out with a post on their Patreon. It's $3, a very worthy read. And it's called The Palette Grid. And essentially it explodes lines and veils into like a sort of like XY axis.
Okay.
And it's essentially like on the front, and I think it's really important for a game like this, where you want to delve into the murkier things. You might want to like a thing with lines and veils is that it sometimes conflates discomfort with danger.
Yes.
But sometimes the things that we're uncomfortable with aren't necessarily dangerous for us, and it's actually worthy of being explored. Topics can range from like patriarchy, misogyny, trans misogyny, and it could make us uncomfortable, but like perhaps someone's discomfort can be someone's valuable catharsis. And just Jay is trying to like explore like how can we better make space for that. So they created two axes, I believe. From left to right, it is I think from up to down. One of the axes is easy and comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just pull it up right now.
I was gonna say I'm also pulling it up to make sure I can see what you're looking at here.
It's
Okay.
really cool. I can start off with the 4 quadrants. There's 4 quadrants that are a result of the 2 lines.
Mm-hmm.
The quadrant is blocked. That is like a tried and true line. There is be cautious. It is something that we want to explore and we're actually very eager to explore, but it's a little risky to talk about. This can be something like patriarchy. Perhaps in some games that could be sexual violence, so that usually is like more of a line. But it's like, we want this present, we want this to be a part of the story, but we need to be like we need to be able to take frequent pauses and be like, hey, is everyone okay? The other quadrant is have fun, and that is just usually something that isn't a line or a veil. And then finally, the final quadrant, that this is boring. It's something that's easy, but it's something that we don't really want to explore. Perhaps that could be violence. Perhaps that could be other matters that we're just like, yeah, like fine. Like it's not going to cause tension, but we also don't necessarily want that in our game.
Definitely.
Very cool resource. Definitely I gotta ask them and reach out and see like, can I put it in my game? Because I think it's really valuable, because then like this is a game where I kind of put the disclaimer like potential themes are horror, sex, romance, gore, and I want to create that kind of space where it's like you want like if you want to create like the sexy aspects of it, or you want to like recreate the flirtatious, perhaps sometimes even violent natures that these dating apps can get. Be sure with your other player that you're like on the same page of where you want that to be. A big thing with the palette grid is that the final product is not more important than the conversation that leads to that final product. Like the conversation of just, where should all these things be, is just as important as like the actual grid that you've made in the end.
That's a really cool way to look at it. I'm new to that, so I appreciate you introducing that to us, because that is it's always nice to improve, even if something isn't necessarily fully broken. It's okay to always be improving on stuff. Currently, we do use the card system here on Sword and Key, but the palette grid does, like you were saying, it offers that opportunity to explore the things that might be marked as lines and veils, because sometimes it is important for us to confront those things. Sometimes people don't want to confront those things. Also totally valid. But it's also one of those really nice things to say, hey, this is something where it's an issue that exists in the world. I want my character to beat the shit out of that issue. I don't love fascism. I don't want fascism to be something that affects my character negatively, but I'd really like to kick fascism in its teeth. Can we do that? Can I make sure that like I beat fascism this time? That's really interesting. I really appreciate you introducing that.
No, yeah, I saw it like 2 weeks ago, and I was like, I'm obsessed.
That's great.
I love it so much. Definitely,
that's
again,
really cool.
Plugging it in. It's on their Patreon. Go give it a read if you'd like. And that, also that way you get to support their work. I think they're working on a new game.
Yeah, definitely. And much to your point of Possum Creek, a lot of great stuff that comes from them, including the Wickedness game that you were mentioning as well. So yeah, always love Possum Creek stuff. So talking about Devil's Lounge and 2 players, you have one player acting as the devil in this sense, the other player the one who is looking to make the deal, however that kind of works out for them, I guess, to be determined. What is that? How does the game kind of set up? What are some of the first stages to getting to that deal? Is it just kind of like a, hey, we jump in and start flipping tarot cards, or is there? I know the answer. Yeah, go ahead.
I got you. There are 2 phases to the game. Right now, if you go to the Kickstarter, you can download the Ash Can, which involves this first phase. Which is essentially like the world building phase, and it's how we're gonna create our lounge, we're gonna create our characters, we're gonna create the user, the devil, and we're gonna create your desire and its corresponding price. Though not all of it will be displayed for the table to see. Some of it will be hidden. Essentially, it is a little bit more of like, here mechanics aren't really taking a big step in the stage. That's more for the later phase, where you are exploring the lounge. But this initial phase, and I actually have some cards over here that I can show us, and just kind of like guide us through maybe not like exactly play it, but just see it. I find it very fun to explain. I'm very proud of it, if you might notice. But essentially,
deservedly so.
We start off by declaring what the lounge is. There's like a little paragraph saying like the lounge is a place where people go find something that they can't find in the outside world. They're usually they usually stumble upon it, and we need to declare what it is. Little blurb saying like media touchstones are very helpful, as it can help guide our direction. I've been playtesting a version just this past week with a friend, and we landed on the Matrix as a media touchstone that we've done. And actually, I recommend doing these as this can be a 1 session, 1-shot game. Doing it as over 2 sessions is also really fun, because it gives you the space to ruminate on what you want. You've created the characters, you found media touchstones, and it's like, okay, and we're back, and now we're actually going to do it.
Yeah, that's very good.
So it'll start with, let me see if I can find it really quick. And I would actually love to read it to you. But we're going to develop the lounge, and a big portion of this game, and here I can sneaky link the second inspiration of the game, which is going to be Godkiller, First Blood by Connie Chang.
For sure. Very familiar with Godkiller.
Yeah. In that game, they use a big move system where essentially the player will say oh, I'm going to do this move. And then they get to respond to something, and then respond to a set of 2 questions. And then the GM will respond with another prompt, and then get to respond to the remaining question. And that idea of there's 2 questions, someone picks first, the other person gets the remaining. I found that very interesting.
That is very interesting.
So I was I very much integrated it into this game as also being a duet game. So when we begin to construct this horrid world, the user will declare how long the lounge has existed. Then the user will choose and answer a question below. The devil will then declare a rumor surrounding the lounge, and then the devil will answer whichever question remains. And the two questions are, what sort of space does the lounge inhabit? Is it a physical bar? Is it a digital space? Is it underground? Does it require a passcode? And then the second question is, who frequents the lounge? Is it loud clubbers? Is it secret coteliers? Or is it grimy regulars? So as the user, you'll like say, going back up, the user will declare how long the lounge has existed, and then they'll just say who frequents it. And they'll say that it's like usually like a big, rowdy punk crowd that goes to the lounge. Then the devil will declare the rumor, and then they've been left with that second space, that second question being, what sort of space does the lounge inhabit? And kind of like maybe riffing off of like what the user said, they'll say that it's underground, so it's like more punk, but maybe they can add their own twist, like the price to pay, like you need like a little drop of blood to enter.
That's really cool. I like that.
So then following that, we'll let the cards decide, and that's four prompts, decided by cards, from 3 separate decks. We'll start off with the user's awareness, and we present 3 cards. We have, and let me see if you can even see these physically. Boop. Not that well. These cards are really cool. They're made by Yoshi Tani. This is the Fool, the High Priestess, and the Hierophant. These cards, the Fool represents kind of like new beginnings. Usually you'll see it's like a little person walking off a cliff, but they have no idea. They're like, yay, this is awesome. The High Priestess is very much like a container of knowledge, and like is an answer to like a lot of questions. And the Hierophant is a card that represents tradition, like morality and tradition. How this plays into the user's awareness is that the devil will deal a card to the user or choose one for them. And essentially, this will represent the user's awareness of the lounge. How, like, what is this main character? How are they entering into this space? At first, this was more going to dictate your personality. And I got very early feedback saying, like, people really want to make their own characters. And I was like, I respect that. That's actually very true.
Yeah.
So you make your own character, but here's an aspect that you don't have control over. What this means is that if you get the Fool, it means that you have no idea what you're getting into. You have entered the lounge and you're like walking through it like blindly and just kind of like, oh, what could go wrong? I have no idea. What even is this place? This is the person who downloaded Tinder or Grindr and they're like, oh, I thought it would be fun. The High Priestess is very much aware. She knows everything, and she knows that she knows that there is a cost to enter the lounge, and she's very willing and owns up the fact that she's doing this. And finally we have the Hierophant, which usually means tradition, and here I changed it a little bit, the idea of tradition conformity, and I turned it into repression. The user is aware but ashamed of their new affiliation with the lounge, an immoral itch that must be scratched. This we see a lot, especially on queer hookup apps. A lot of people who hide their faces. They're on this place and they have something that they want, but they don't. They're just like a disconnect on like, why am I doing this? Is this even allowed? And I very much wanted to explore that. And then from there, we'll answer more questions. Just gonna pass through it really quick. 2 questions here is like, what is the user's biggest fear? Have any of the user's old connections passed through the lounge? If you're the user, you get to answer first. Whatever you don't answer though, you're letting the devil answer that. So if you say, yeah, I had a friend who passed through the lounge, you essentially let this other character dictate what your biggest fear is. Which I find very fun. Like we both have a little.
That's a really cool mechanic. Yeah, that's a very cool mechanic. Yeah, kind of like, that fear of answering the question being balanced by, well, are you going to give that power to the other person who's actively, not necessarily actively working against you, but working towards their own self-interest. And I think that's
very much just like a little section in the book that kind of like, it's a guide of like, hey, if you're the devil, like keep these things in mind. You're not actively the enemy of the main character. You're just here to make things scary.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's that concept of dating is like, is the devil that really of a bad guy, or is he just working towards his own self-interest? And if being selfish makes him evil, then what does that make you? And that's kind of that balance. Like he's making a deal.
He's
Yet
making a deal.
there might be a power imbalance, but is that his fault?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe that's my old Catholic repression coming out. Uh, I really love the life experience that you've put into this. It really it creates so much more color and flavor to this game than like speaking personally. I'm old enough that I remember when dating apps like first became a thing, and everybody's like, "That's not ever gonna work." And I'm very lucky. I'm gonna say lucky in that the only dating app I've ever had to use is Discord, not a dating app. So I don't have this experience. So kind of like I've always heard from friends, and I've always heard from from people who actually like do experience them. So this is such a cool kind of take on it to kind of see from the outset, and also maybe to old folks like me to have the opportunity to maybe experience that
Mm-hmm.
without having to actually genuinely experience it. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about games and TTRPGs is getting
Yes.
to live out experiences that you otherwise would be unsafe or in fantasy ways impossible, things like that.
Exactly.
Or we always talk about in D&D that you can live out the beautiful things like owning a home and having a stable job and actually having enough money for everything. um, so very, very cool. So we talked about kind of the setup of it all, kind of how tarot works into it as well, and the a few of the finer points of tarot cards. And I really appreciate you also bringing up like the cat deck as well, that you can also flavor this game
You
to
can play through
have
this game the way you want. At the end of the
however you
day,
want.
like
Yeah,
exactly, like it has its like I've learned to let go of like the mama hen instinct of like this is what the meaning is, and it's like no, actually, it can, like that's the beauty of these kinds of games. It's a rule set that allows other things to blossom and bloom.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So in the sense of like leaving a little bit of mystery and letting people kind of play this game out, because this definitely is a game where it's like you said before, it doesn't use numbers. The randomness is based on the tarot itself, and depending on who you ask, maybe that is poignant as well. I've always really enjoyed tarot as being something that inspires questions, doesn't necessarily tell the future, but inspires you and influences you to look introspectively and consider whether that's something you need to consider for yourself. um so, and we also talked about how a game can have any number of vibes. I mean, I think at the end of the day, you don't even have to have this be the devil, as we have talked about recently on this show with another game that featured warlocks. You especially in D&D, where you have this otherworldly patron. I think you could maybe even substitute somebody who is again has that power imbalance, somebody who's looking to make a deal. And kind of utilize this as an interesting interaction with them as well. Um, it seems like this game could have like almost any ending to it. Is kind of the feeling to it. Like it has the good ending, has the bad ending, has everything else in between. Where yeah, you're maybe getting something out of it, but you're also losing something.
Mm-hmm.
What's the ultimate like vibe you want people to take away from this? You mentioned it's like a horror dating app. Is there like a catharsis you're hoping that folks will take from this,
Mm-hmm.
or what's the ultimate hope for when people play this?
I think that like from the times that I've play tested this, I've had definitely had experiences with people like flopping, completely flopping. They're not matching with anyone, and then other times
Hmm.
where it's just like they're getting it all. So I think for me, I like really want to see that moment of it can go in different directions. It can be the catharsis I think I'm seeking is like I've definitely like all these apps, you will find something beautiful out of them no matter what. I've made really good friends on Grinder of all places. And it's always like a funny little experience that you're like, "Oh wow, that happened." So it's not to vilify the space, but it is to like see like its multitudes. Um I would love to see games where love surpasses the monstrosity. It's simply recognized that monstrous love. Or also like a game perhaps where we see someone just descend into madness. Or kind of like, because there will be games where you won't match with anyone and you'll be very unsuccessful, and seeing that like that internal world of your character as they like struggle through these feelings of feeling undesired, like will come up. And I want to see that side, and like that's kind of something that I want to see like get played into.
I love that.
Like,
That's very cool.
There's different routes. I want to see the horror. I want to see what kind of prices people come up with. And how the characters with that change.
Well, and you did say the key word, which is monster love, which is something we really appreciate around here. I'm the co-host of a podcast called Monster Crush, which is about loving monsters. So I definitely appreciate that concept. Yeah. I think there's also something beautiful in that you are inherently, if you can find beauty in something that is horrifying, then you can find beauty in yourself. You know, if you can find love in something that is scary, then how can you not love yourself back? You know, it's the whole thing, like, you can't love anyone until you can love yourself. You know, I have a friend that originally started the podcast, and, you know, when she would look in the mirror, she would see a monster. You know, she basically, her brain was not fair to her, and so she learned to love monsters because it was a way she could learn to love herself and look in the mirror and go, well, I'm not a cryptid, at least. Like, I'm not a horrifying, you know, werewolf monster, so I can at least love myself because I love that werewolf monster. So that's always really great.
That's fucking beautiful, Derek.
It's an important thing to do, and I think that's a beautiful thing about games that do encourage romance, do encourage finding that beauty and finding that love. Speaking of beautiful things, I love the cover art for this game. I think it's very cool. I love the heart-shaped devil face and everything. Who did your art?
Absolutely, a childhood friend of mine. We've known each other since 5th grade. We were the first people we came out to each other.
That's bonding.
Sitting in like math class, paired up. They tell me like, I'm bi. I'm like, I'm gay. And then they were like, what? And I was like, that was a joke. And they were like, if it's a fucking joke, I'm gonna kill you. And I'm like, okay, no, I am.
That's really funny.
Very, very dear friend of mine. Their name is Bea Varela. You can find them on Instagram. Please follow their art. They're an extremely talented artist. I believe their tag is Bea Draws __.
Okay.
Definitely need to confirm that. And if not, like, it's definitely on the Kickstarter itself towards the end. You can find their Instagram page. I'm gonna find it right now though. And
yeah, that's okay. I'm also looking it up. You can do the talking. I've got multiple screens for a reason.
No, they're amazing. They're definitely like a guiding star in terms of horror. I found it. It's Bea _Varela _.
Gotcha.
Which is a little hard to find, but they're an illustrator, they're a comic artist, and they've I think they studied sequential art over at SCAD. They are based and from Panama. They're a Panamanian artist, and I'm adding it to the chat here if it could be sent over to the Twitch chat.
Absolutely.
Like throughout growing up, we would watch a lot of horror movies together. There's someone who introduced horror into my life. So I very much, once I was starting working on this project, I called them and I was like, yo, I think I need you on this.
It's always great to have those people.
A lot of co-aligning that was happening. They've made tarot art before, their own renditions. They have a version on their Instagram. There's a lover's card, and it's 2 trans people sitting by the tree of Eden and snakes on the side. And I was just okay, this is tarot, this is horror, this is meant to be. Let's go.
That's very good. That's really cool. As far as anyone else who worked on this project with you, any other names you want to shout out?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I've got Linnea Glasser working on this project with me. She's also a really cool narrative designer, and it was really funny how we started working on this. I had the concept. It was a little bit of a classic networking thing where someone told me like, oh, you should hit this person up for like questions and answers. And I was just like, yo, I'm making a game and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. And also just like, what do you do as a narrative designer? And we were talking for like 15 minutes plus. And then suddenly they're like, oh yeah, what is it about? And I was like, oh, it's a dating app horror game. And they were like, that sounds really up my alley. They're like, I've made horror games and I've made dating games. And then we just kind of just like, they were like, can I work on this? And I was like, absolutely.
That's very cool.
So they've been like, honestly, so key and so important. Before, like, especially if you look over the ashcan, everything is very organized and clear. Before, it was one paragraph for each thing. Like wherever you see like the devil, 2 dots, do this action, do this action, do this action. And it's like 4 different bullet points. That used to be a paragraph where I would just like via words be like, oh, and then do this, and then do that, and then do that. And they were like, no, use these words, format it like this, make this as clear and concise as possible. And I was like, how was I doing this without you?
That's the one thing I hear from a lot of game designers is like, I feel like a lot of game designers have this game sitting for so long in their head, and it's just like, well, this is how my brain has settled on it, but it still doesn't feel 100% correct. And then just somebody walks in, moves like 2 letters, and suddenly it's perfect. And you just need like that second set of eyes, and that's great. I absolutely love that.
And they've been like really encouraging. A lot of like whilst we were working together, I was like, I'm thinking about this mechanic and this mechanic, and they've been an excellent hammer. They're like, no, don't do that. I was like, Martin, this game is good. Like, don't like them. Just like they were just they gave me a lot of good feedback in terms of, and a lot of guidance in terms of it works. Don't fall the pit hole of trying to perfect something because there will never be anything perfect. And it's
That's
like
really
here's
good
a
advice.
baseline. For a while, the game was gonna be incredibly modular. I was gonna like give you like so many settings that you could choose for yourself. And that they were the one who was like, this is the kind of game that you play once and maybe twice. You like play it with another person, but it's like it's one unique experience. And I was like, yeah, I should take out the modular stuff, right? And they're like, yeah.
It's nice to have that affirmation, right?
Exactly.
Like,
No, it was really needed. It was really needed.
just need one person to say, and you're like, yes, thank you. Okay, I feel better now.
Like, I should not do that, right? No, you shouldn't. Okay, great. I won't.
That's great. Awesome. Well, Tintin, it has been so fantastic talking to you about Devil's Lounge. Is there anything else that you wanted to necessarily feature about this game? Anything that you think that I missed discussing, or like anything itching at the back of your brain that's like, I really want people to know this about the game?
I do. It's two
Yeah,
little
go for it,
things.
please.
I think I would like to
Please.
give y'all a little bit of a preview that
Yeah.
is not available right now on the Ashcan. But starting off with one part that is, and it's just like the way the desire and the price are chosen. Because those are chosen. Those are not randomly dealt the way that the devil's shape and form is decided and the awareness. And you will be deciding, like the user will decide between the sun and the star. If you choose the sun, that means, and I'm gonna use layman's terms, you're horny as hell. You're here because you want to like get a breadth of experiences. You have like a more carnal desire. So there's something that you crave. Meanwhile, the star is something that you yearn for, and I very much wanted to like leave this as a choice because there is like a bit of a dichotomy of experiences with like these kind of dating hookup apps where people are looking for different things. And I wanted to, the really cool thing about this desire is that it has an in-game objective change. Your objective in the game changes depending on which desire you choose. From that, whichever card you didn't choose is added to the moon, and then now the devil chooses the price. There's like a little list of recommended prices of what you can do, but the devil will choose the card. Whatever is not chosen gets added into the event deck. And for a little preview for like the second phase of play, I'd love to just like give you like a little trinkles of how it goes about, and I'll definitely be very concise. But essentially the game is play out in 10 rounds, and these 10 rounds occur over 9 events, and you will have 3 decks. You will have an event deck, for which we just added the card. Say we chose the moon as the price, so I put the sun into the event deck in a very specific spot. There's a way to build it. We have the event deck, we have the denizen deck. Denizens are the characters that you're meeting, and then we have a challenge deck, which is going to be the kings, queens, and pages, and the devil. It's a 13 card deck. And essentially the way the game plays is that every round, you will have 3 denizens will enter the lounge, and you will have the choice to match with either of them, with any of them, or all of them. You can match as many times as you'd like. The way matching works is you will be given 3 cards from the challenge deck. So maybe you get a queen, a king, and a page. That's quote unquote the strongest hand, because when you attempt to match with someone, the devil will pull a card from the challenge deck, and then you'll play a card that matches. So if the devil plays a king, you want to play a king that is a match, and then you get a heart with that denizen. And that is how you increase your relationships. And then we'll have a first impressions role-playing event, and then we'll also just describe what that interaction looks like. From there, as the game progresses, we'll go through different events. Like every round, 3 denizens. Choose who to match with. No one, someone. Once you're done, we move on to the next round. And then the card of the event will have an impact on like the mood of the specific round. And one thing that I do want to highlight, and like, yeah, those cards, they're here. You'll see them in the game. I'm actually going to hold myself back, not reveal them. Not reveal what are the events and what are the denizens. But a mechanic that I do really want to highlight here, where it's kind of my first opportunity to do so, is the fact that this game can end whenever the user wants, in theory. Throughout the challenge deck, you will be given 3 cards every round. If you ever get the devil in your hand and you play the devil, the game ends. That is a choice that you have, where you play the devil, the game has ended. It means that you've had enough, you're fed up, or perhaps you simply had your fill, you're content. Mm-hmm. And then we'll play out a final phase of the game where we'll examine the choices you've made, the objectives you may or may not have completed, and we'll play out a little epilogue, and then that's the game. But I really love the idea. I'm like, that was a very central mechanic that I haven't shown on the Kickstarter itself, but I definitely wanted to share. It's like it's the choice to leave is always there. It's a matter of when you're taking it.
That's really interesting, and that adds almost like gambling sort of feel to it. It's like, are you willing to step away from the table with what you have?
Or do you feel like your character really wants to keep trying, keep murking your fingers in? And like, depending on how you played the game, you might not be free. Like, you choosing to end the game does not mean that you permanently leave the lounge, because the lounge may have gotten a hold of you, and actually you tried, but you can't.
That's great. That's just the risk, the cost, or the sunk cost fallacy of it all is great too. It's like, well, I put in this much. Do I keep going? That's absolutely amazing. I think the Devil's Lounge is a super cool game. I think it's great. I love all of the personality you put into it, and also your personal self into it as well. Again, massive congratulations on hitting your Kickstarter goal. That's absolutely amazing.
I'm still thinking about that.
You have 5 days still to go, so there is still time to support, and I hope that if you haven't, you do, to those folks in the audience there. This is a very fun game with some really cool art, really cool design, and there's some really great incentives as well if you're looking to back. So highly recommend checking it out and getting taking a stab at the Devil's Lounge. Tintín, is there anything else you want to cover, or anything you'd like to promote otherwise, where people can find more of you and all that stuff?
Yeah, no, for everyone who's like just popped in at this point of the stream, definitely just like a little bit of a plug. Feel free to find me on Itch, on Blue Sky, on Instagram if you would like, and on Twitter if you're feeling risky, because That's never gonna update. But on what you'll be finding me on Corazon Interactive is the name. Corazon is heart, interactive is interactive, and that's where I'll be posting a lot of updates on the game itself. If you don't manage to back the game, you will be able to like buy it digitally on itch.io in the near future. And yeah, no, I'm excited to see what comes out of this. Thank you so much for having me. I think I've run out of words.
Well, then that's a perfect place for us, Dan. It's so great having you. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. I'm not even saying, if when you make your next game, we would love to have you back here for more Sword and Tea to just to see what you make
Yes,
next.
no, I 100% will actually.
Yeah, that'd be
The
absolutely
conversation
fantastic.
was fantastic.
That's great to hear. Thank you so much, Tintin. Please check out Corazon Interactive. Again, you're being risky if you're going to Twitter at all these days, so check out Blue Sky. Please consider backing The Devil's Lounge on Kickstarter. You have 5 days still to do so, but why wait? Do it while you're thinking about it now. And there's some really cool stuff that you can get. You can always just make the $1 pledge and not really get anything out of it, but you're still putting towards the arts, and that's important. It's important to support creators. There is a lot of stuff. Actually, what are some of the rewards that folks can get if they're
Oh,
looking to back?
100%. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
A big part of the rewards is gonna be so you can get the digital version. The above tier for $20 you can get the physical edition, and now for 30 you can get the physical edition plus a promo tarot card of the cover itself that I will be printing out and sending to all backers who are on that pledge level. Not all backers. And above that, it's very much kind of like if you would really like to splurge and like be a patron of this thing. In all honesty, I have like a two relative discount on the sharing is caring, where you get 2 cards and 2 zines, where essentially you get the cards for free if you think about it in the right way. And finally, there it starts growing. I have, if anyone knows any retail like friendly local game shops who would love to host like this game for themselves before it goes big, manifesting, there's MSRP, like market retail value offers on those. And as you get higher, we have a few pledges of like you can become a patron of the star, the sun, and the moon, where you yourself will get to dictate one of the recommended prices for what should be enacted to enter the lounge for each of these cards. And following up, you can, I think it's I forgot the name specifically, but you can either design your own denizen or design your own devil as a pledge tier. You'll have like a one-on-one meeting, well, 2-on-1 meeting, I guess, with me and our artist Bea Varela.
That's really cool. That's a really cool thing to do. Well then, yes, folks, please hit those goals. I mean, it's a great game. Put your money towards it. It's one of those things that you'll be glad to have sitting on your shelf, or at the very least sitting in as a PDF in your drives, whatever have you. Again, Tintin, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to you in the audience for joining us for another Sword and Tea.
For having me.
Absolutely. That is going to be it for us at Sword and Tea. For Sword and Key, I should say that you can find all of our stuff at beacons.ai/Sword and Key. You can find all of our links there. Join our Discord, hang out, talk about games like this. This is literally how we found The Devil's Lounge, was one of our community members posted about it. So if there are games
I didn't even know that. That warmed my heart when you said it earlier.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's how we hear about stuff. This is a community for a reason. Talking about stuff is how we find it. None of us have enough time to see everything that's out there in the world. So if you yourself are a game creator, please consider joining our community and posting about your stuff. If you see a cool game out there, please post about it. We'd love to talk to the game designer if possible. That's how we get wonderful chats like this, and meet wonderful people like Tintin. So yes, you can join our Discord through beacons.ai/Sword and Key. You can also see all of our other links. We're primarily on Instagram and Blue Sky now as well. You can see our ongoing affiliate ships if you are looking to get some discounts on some cool stuff and maybe some cool gifts for yourself. We have affiliate ships like Long Dog Dice. Jen is a fantastic dice creator. Eldritch Foundry, they make custom minis. Wishbone Cosmetics for a UK queer-owned cosmetics brand. And even Hit Point Press, the makers of like the Griffin Saddleback books. And Humblewood also. You can find all of those links and all of our discount codes for all of that stuff all in one neat, nice place on Beacons. You can see our ongoing philanthropic endeavors if you're looking to donate towards a great cause like PCRF or Canine Companions for Independence or Fauna and Flora International, and lots of other stuff. You can even find the links for our podcast Monster Crush, where LD and I talk about monsters and finding love in the monsters. It is currently the March of Madness, in the March of Madness, so we are doing our Lovecraftian bracket system where LD is trying to find the sexiest Lovecraftian monster, ignoring the fact, well, I guess not ignoring, but acknowledging and also despising the fact that Lovecraft was a piece of shit, but also, like, a lot of the monsters weren't made by him, so there's that.
He wasn't fun to speak to, I agree.
he was pretty awful, but other people have built off of it and made it so much better. So we're not even doing really any of the monsters he created. We're doing all the stuff that other writers later created. Anyway, yeah. So yes, Beacons has all of that stuff. Looking at our calendar, you can join us in less than 2 hours for the Season 5 premiere of Horizon's Call, our nautical campaign, which very pointedly to having this Sword and Tea before, all of my players are going to the Hells and in a D&D setting. So it's a very infernal day for me. But that'll be 3 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. Eastern. So check that out. Same place right here. Twitch.tv/swordandkey. And looking at everything else on our calendar, which I should have pulled up, but I don't. There we go. Tomorrow we do have Humblewood Yonderbound, our second season of Humblewood, which will be back at 10 a.m. Pacific time. On Tuesday we have Gate Night, where LD Shadow and I play Baldur's Gate 3 at 7 p.m. Pacific time. And then our next thing will be Horizon's Call, which will play every Saturday. We do have a special guest, I should note as well. Very special guest, which will be joining us for 3 sessions of Horizon's Call. That plays again every Saturday at 3 p.m. Pacific. Humblewood's 10 a.m. On Sundays at 10 a.m. Pacific, and Tuesdays is the 7 p.m. Pacific for Gate Night. We'll have some other stuff out soon. We also do have movie nights that are strictly in the Discord, totally free. All you do is just be a member of the community. But our next one coming up will be, that's also going to be tonight. I moved that because Eva and I were at Comic-Con yesterday. So tonight it is going to be The Lighthouse, which I guess slowly moving from hell to like nautical hell, which again is also a weird through line on this channel. But that will be 6:30 p.m. tonight after Horizon's Call. So keep an eye out for that. Other than that, we'll have more stuff. Like I said, we're going to have some applications out relatively soon. Those always post to the Discord first and go to our socials second. So keep an eye out for those, and we'll have some more cool stuff coming your way. In the meantime, again, thank you to Tintín. Thank you to Corazon Interactive. Thank you to you in the audience. Thank you to all of the backers for the Devil's Lounge. You can find more about this game again on the Kickstarter, as well as the socials that we mentioned. Please consider doing so. And we are going to be rating Katie Quixotic, a friend of the channel, who is currently playing Palia. So hang out there, spread some positivity, and we hope to see you back here at 3 p.m. Pacific time for Horizon's Call. Until that time, take care of yourselves, take care of others, and we hope to see you soon.